Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to your video on slope-intercept form. You will be able to use slope-intercept form to write equations and graph lines. So let's get started. Vocabulary that we need to discuss before we can do anything. Linear equation is what models a linear function. And we've learned about those already, but just a reminder that the variables cannot be raised to any power besides 1. In other words, you will not see x cubed, x squared, y cubed, or anything like that. They're not raised to any power. So linear equations are what are used to make slope-intercept form. Then slope-intercept form are linear equations written in y equals mx plus b form. And we need to identify some of these terms here. Y is just your y coordinate. Okay. X is your x coordinate. If I were, x, y, it's your x, and in x, y, it is your y. M is your slope, which you've already learned. B is the new one, and B is your y-intercept. Why it is the letter B, I don't have a clue, but it is. So that's what slope-intercept form is. But we do need to identify what y-intercept is, and that is the y-coordinate of a point where the graph crosses the y-axis. So if I were to draw a graph here, something that looks like that, the y-intercept would be that point right there where your line crosses the y-axis. And that is why it's called the y-intercept, because it intercepts at the y. The first thing we need to do is identify slope and y-intercept when we have an equation in y equals mx plus b form, or slope-intercept form. So here's our, whoops. Let's try that again. Here's our first equation. Okay, and we're just going to match it, basically lining it up with everything. And so your m is lined up with your 5, which means your slope is 5. And then b matches up with the 2. Now you have to be noticing the positive or the negative, the plus or minus sign, because that dictates whether or not your your y-intercept is positive or negative. In this case, okay, it's a negative 2, which means our y-intercept is negative 2, but we want to write that as a coordinate point, so it will be 0, negative 2. Next example, we have y equals negative 3/2 x plus 4. Same thing. Here is our slope, our m, and then 4, noticing whether it's positive or negative. In this case, it's positive, so your y-intercept is 4. Now we need to practice graphing and writing equations. So here is the first example. This problem, I guess it's the only example too, but here you're told that your slope is 3 and your y-intercept is negative 2. So you are going to first write the equation or graph it. It really doesn't matter which order you go in, but I'm going to write my equation first. So y equals, and it's the form mx plus b. M is your slope, and so I'm going to write 3x, and then plus your y-intercept, which would be plus, and then negative 2. But the better, smarter looking way to write that would be 3x minus 2. And now that we've done that, we can take and transfer that to make a graph. So we're going to start with our y-intercept. equaling -2, which means it's the point 0, -2. So I'm going to plot that point on my graph. Okay, and then from there, I know that the slope is 3, and that's the change in y over the change in x, so it's 3 over 1. So I'm going to, from that point, count up 3 and over 1, up 3 and over 1. Same thing, you could go down 3 and to the left 1. And then you just need to double check that you're making this correct. And one way to double check it is to make sure that your slope, knowing whether it's increasing or decreasing, and the line should be increasing or decreasing. The slope is positive, so I should have an increasing line, which I do, so I know that I've graphed it appropriately. Okay, your turn. Please find for number 1 the slope and the y-intercept of the given equation, and then number 2, you are going to write the equation in slope-intercept form given this information. Go ahead and do it, and then check in with me when you are done. Best of luck. Alright, the answers are on your screen. Go ahead and check and see how you did. Writing equations again, and this time you can write them from looking at a graph. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Here is your first graph. The first step in doing this is to find the y-intercept, and that is at this point right here, which is 0, 2. And then you need to find the slope. And you can pick any 2 points along the line. It doesn't matter, but it is up 2 and over 1, and it is positive, so my slope is 2. And I will take that information to write an equation. So y equals m, which is 2x, plus my y-intercept, which is also 2. So y equals 2x plus 2 is the equation. Just another quick example here. Find the y-intercept right there. That's at 0, 2. Then find the slope by connecting points along the line. And that would be 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So y equals negative, because it's going downwards, 2/3 x plus 2. Now it's your turn to prove that you've learned this material. First one, you are graphing a function, and number 2, you are writing the equation for the graph. So go ahead and do those, and then check in with me by turning back on your video when you are done. Alright, number 1, graph a function. I'm going to just draw it on this graph right here. It's going to be in orange. Y-intercept is -1. Slope is 4. So you should have a line that looks like this, positive and pretty steep. Number 2, write the equation to the graph in green. That would be y equals, and then your slope is up 1 and over 3. So 1/3 x. Y-intercept is -3, so 1/3 x equals 1/3 x minus 3. Now you can write equations with coordinates. That is another way that you can go about this. So in this example, we have one coordinate and the slope, and you can take and write an equation based off of that, which I personally find pretty fun. So we're going to use the y equals mx plus b. And then what you're going to do is just take the information and put it in for what you know. The m is obviously -4. And then this is, if you remember, your x and y coordinate, which is your x and y values. So it's 2 equals negative 4 times 2 plus b, because that's the only thing that we don't know. Then we are going to solve. So negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 plus b. Add 8 on both sides, and b equals 10. So now we can write our equation. Now that we know that b equals 10, we're going to rewrite this. So y equals negative 4x plus 10 is our final answer. And you can even solve it when you're only given 2 points. You can write an equation in slope-intercept form. So here we go. Here are your 2 points. And this is how you do it. You have to know your y-intercept and you have to know your slope. So the very first thing we have to do when you're only given 2 points is to find the slope. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So negative 8 minus 1. 5 minus 2, and that will give me negative 9 over 3, which is negative 3. So my slope is negative 3, and then, so I know that I am here so far. Now I have to find the b part of that, and that's very similar to what you did in the last one I just showed you, is now that you have partial stuff, you can fill this in. So we're going to take y equals negative 3x plus b, because that's what we're trying to find. And you can pick either coordinate. It doesn't matter what coordinate point you use. I'm just going to use the positive numbers, but you can use and either one. It doesn't matter. So 1 equals negative 3 times 2 plus b. So negative 6 plus b equals 1. Add 6 on both sides, and 7 equals b. So now I can finish my equation and say plus 7. So there is my answer. Your turn. Write in slope-intercept form for these 2 questions. One is when you're given 2 coordinate points, and one is a coordinate point and slope. Go ahead and do this. Make sure you're showing all of your work just like I did in the examples, and then turn this on when you are ready to check and see how you did. And here are your answers. Hopefully you got them all right. If you have questions, please be sure to ask in class. Alright, this is the end of your video. Thank you for watching. Look forward to working on this with you in class. Stay awesome!